Welcome, yogis. Namaste. I hope this finds you doing well, feeling well. There's a phrase, and I might not have this exactly right, but essentially, if you want the world to be peaceful, to make your own life peaceful. And so I've been thinking about that, as there are so many things in the world that are stirred up, and specifically right now, as I'm teaching this class with you, the events of the past week in the Twin Cities and so on. And I know I'm not alone in feeling a lot about that. So I was thinking about what can we do for each of us in our own systems to manage the energy that gets stirred up in us as we recognize lack of peace around us. And if we're not involved directly, how do we have an impact? How do we feel that we're doing something positive? So in addition to all the peace creating that we do in our systems with just regular yoga, and that's a big part of what we're doing every time, is creating more ease and peace in our systems. In addition, we're going to be doing a little meditation today that I had actually forgotten about, and I have not done in a long time. And I was excited to remember it and feel that it's a perfect practice for me anyway, and I hope you too during these times. It's a very simple, very kind of repetitive, easy meditation. So I think you'll enjoy it. We'll be doing that at the end of our practice. And it's a really easy one to repeat on your own. So that should feel really good. We are going to be starting off seated, doing the Sufi grind, which is this circular movement of the rib cage and so on. So take a moment, get comfortable and upright somewhere. I'll remind you that every time we find neutral in our body, where there's a lack of argument of, one muscle group being too bossy and the other one being too passive, every time you get those things in balance and there's a equality, you find neutral and you find peace. So I love all the different ways we can think about what creates peace, what creates calm, and in this case, starting, of course, with our own bodies, finding neutral, finding peace. So find a seated position where you don't feel that you're having to hold yourself up. You're not straining to be upright. I see that a lot when I say, to find an open heart space. What I mean is let your shoulders kind of slide down and calm. And what people often do is sort of jut the rib cage forward. So you might even just place your hand on your own heart space and kind of invite it to slowly settle back until you find kind of a calm. And you can do the same with the head-neck position, that there's a tendency to kind of reach the chin or to be dropped and forward. So for me, the best way to find neutral is to think about those sits bones, that you're on those kind of two little bony bits at the bottom of the butt, and to root down into the floor or your bolster or whatever you're on, and then rise up, reach up through the crown, which is actually a little bit kind of at the back top of the head. It's not so much middle or forward, because that'll tend to make you kind of arch up, and instead we'd like that wonderful, easeful, neutral. So first, please find that in your body and making any little adjustments until you're ready. And I'm going to be adding a mudra, hand position, that I just find very, again, settling. And it's the index finger and the thumb together, and the other finger is just relaxed and draped around the knee. Turn the gaze up and in, looking behind that third eye, center of the forehead, between the eyebrows. What do you see there today? Colors, darkness, little points of light. And now take your inward looking into the body itself. Notice again that action of the root and reach, and just assess if it really does feel equal calm If any part feels that it's striving, compressed, compensating, holding on too tightly. And if so, in a moment in our drishti grind or sufi grind, you're going to have a moment to talk to those muscles and invite them to equalize and unwind. For right now, please just settling into breath here. Notice it rising and settling in the body. Feel free to add ujjayi, your great sounding breath, that little throat contraction that creates that sound. And I'm intentionally doing ujjayi quite powerfully here in the hopes that you'll be able to hear my great sounding breath. But unless you're in a more active flow, we love that ujjayi to be kind of just a gentle valve on the breath. Something just enough that allows you to hear the breath and to perhaps notice more astutely the moment of pause between the active inhale and exhale. If you find it difficult to stay present with the breath watching, you might try witnessing or even inquiring, saying, is there more, or I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling. And are you able to just soften and spread the muscles of the face? Sometimes I think about how it would feel to, go out into the sunshine and feel the warmth of it on my skin. And that often will create that feeling of openness and receptivity for me in my face. And it often brings also a soft smile. You might place the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth. And we're going to be coming into our Sufi grind. We'll be going both directions. I'm going to start by going counterclockwise. And I'm doing that with the intention that my counterclockwise movement of the rib cage is symbolizing unwinding of patterns, perhaps in this case, stress, tension, any energies that we recognize are just not supportive to our peace, to our wholeness. And so I'm circling the ribs, ideally letting the shoulders and the neck kind of just float above. I'm not trying to stir the world with my head. And it doesn't have to be a big circle in order probably for you to feel some of the muscles in the back, maybe down into the hips and so on. And of course you might choose to take it bigger, and you can speed or slow it. You can have the breath become faster and kind of more active, or just keeping the breath slow and steady as the movement happens. They don't have to match. So we're going to go a few more here, counterclockwise, breathing. And of course, with this movement, your body will respond. There'll be some, as you can see, kind of rocking or movement in the head, but I'm not actively trying to move those parts. They're just responding to the center. Couple more this direction, slowing more, speeding up. And the next time you are in your forward portion, pause, inhale, exhale, go clockwise. I always start off slow so that I can, again, observe and kind of scan the body, notice perhaps difference in sensations going this direction. few more in this direction. This is considered the building sequence or the winding up. So if there's any particular energy that you're wanting to cultivate, you can just hold that word in your mind's eye. Again, I'm kind of working with a theme here of peace, the word for which is shanti, S-H-A-N-T-I. You've heard me say it every class at the end, Om Shanti Shanti, Om Peace Peace. And slowly coming to your center, pause, find once again neutral. Doing the Sufi grind is actually one of my favorite things to do some mornings. I just feel kind of stiff. I'm not ready to do anything else, and I'll enjoy doing that. We'll do a similar version when we're in table pose in a moment. For now, taking your right hand down to the floor or your bolster and creating a side body stretch, rooting through the sits bones, reaching through the hand. You can turn the gaze down to create ease in the neck. And I'm going to just pulse here a moment, re-rising and moving to the right. And the next time I'm in my reaching to the right, I'm going to pause and rotate my chest down a little bit so that I'm feeling a deeper stretch from my fingers all the way down through that left kind of hip bone and outside of the pelvis. And releasing, return to neutral. Left hand plants, right arm reaches, rooting through the sits bone and stretching to your left. So just these side body stretches are marvelous for helping restore some neutrality in the body and also helping us notice where, again, we might be under torque and pull that we didn't even realize, imbalances that can contribute to us injuring ourselves if we go to, pick up a bucket or what have you. Go ahead and rotate that chest a little towards the floor, deeply activating through that middle finger, breathing. And releasing upright. Good. And I'm going to invite you to do just a little cow-cat movement. So the cow movement is that arching the chest forward, tailbone back. And in this case, just briefly, I'm going to invite you to reach your chin up. I'm not dropping or collapsing my head back. Reaching. Deep breath. Feel a stretch in the throat. Exhaling, rounding into that cat back. Oh, getting that nice stretch across the back of the shoulder blades. Good. Let's do that twice more. And here you can really tuck the chin if you want to. Gives a nice massage for the thyroid. And then on the inhale, again, we're getting this marvelous stretch all the way down into the chest. And release it. This is a lovely time then to check in with the neck. You might just do it kind of free form like this or create that neck collar. And then as you are ready, moving your bolster to the side if you were using one. And we're going to come into the table version, a little bit of what we just did, cow-cat here. Middle finger forward, intelligent hands. Inhale, draw the heart forward, tailbone back, shoulder heads drawing towards the hips. Exhaling, tuck the tailbone. That's what initiates the cat back. Please use this time to anchor deeply into breath, but also that nice core activity. So even think about like what we do during compression exhale, which we're usually on our back. Squeezing, emptying, emptying, emptying. Is there more? Filling, filling, filling. Is there more? And last cat back. And then inviting you to go circularly. So again, this is a little bit like our Sufi grind. And you can get nice and organic with it. Sometimes I like taking my hips back to the heels. Maybe finding a spot that just feels really good, kind of hanging out there. And then when you're ready, reversing. So just doing a few times each way, warming the spine. Again, noticing stuck spots or just places that are appreciating the stretch. And when you're ready, please come on into your stable table, as I call it. And that means that I'm not hanging on the limbs, that I'm engaged into that supportive core such that I could maybe even clap because my power is right there. I'm not hanging out and rooted into the hands. And we can test that now. Inhaling, just hover the right hand and left knee a little off the floor and notice how your body's responding. Exhaling, returning those limbs, stable table. Inhaling, lifting left hand and right knee. Breathing, softness through the face. Exhaling, returning. And we're going to add limb extensions to this. So when you are ready, inhaling, release right hand, left knee, and reach for opposite walls. Again, notice if you're collapsing, restabilize. Exhaling, come back as slowly as you can. And notice when you find neutral, all four limbs bearing your weight. And there's kind of a peacefulness. And as soon as we release left hand, right knee, then there's some like, wow, activity, compensating, muscles kind of diving in to support you, as they should. And as you can, slowly back. We're going to do that again, and then we're going to hold a little bit. So inhaling, right arm, left leg, pause, find neutral in the neck, supported in the core. You might even play, can you release your left hand? And then slowly take the limbs out a little bit, just a little, not a big 90 degrees or anything crazy. And slowly center and return. If you need to roll out wrists or anything, do. Other side. So we're going to lift left hand, right knee, extend, pause, maybe check, see if you can get that right hand off the floor. Breathe and extend out the sides a little bit, holding. I've got a good quiver going, some good heat rising. I hope you are too. That means you're using all those strong muscles that we want to, and come on back. Good. Again, you might want to roll out the wrists and so on. And then I'm going to invite us here in a stretch for the quadriceps. And this may not work for everyone, and you could always do a standing quad stretch, of course, or come onto your belly for your bow. But I'm going to invite us to basically lift the left leg. You're going to kind of raise it up so that that knee is as high as it comfortably can be, maintaining your support with the belly. And then just release your right hand and see if you can reach back and get a connection with the ankle. And then it really helps to let that right shoulder rotate down and back, like you do in yoga mudra. It's just kind of doing it on one side. And then I'm just going to hold here. Some of you, if you're more flexible than me, you might need to kind of press the ankle back into the hand to get the stretch. I've got a good quad stretch going here right now. And breathe into it. Make sure that low belly is supporting the spine. And release. Other side. I'm going to take that right leg up. And again, you can do a little pulsing too as a nice way to get those hamstrings working for you and the glutes. And to see how tight that quad is. Again, nice core support. And then slowly reaching back, seeing if you can make a connection. And again, if not, standing quad stretch would be easier because you can add a strap more easily. And then letting the left shoulder rotate down and back. And that kind of opens the chest a little bit, much like in bow or standing dancer. And notice if this side is different. I can feel a bigger kind of burn and stretch in my right quad. Doesn't surprise me. I've been feeling much tighter on that side. Breathing. And slowly release. All right, we're going to come into our first downward facing dog. And everything I'll be offering there you could do in table instead. So if you just know dog is not feeling good on your shoulders today or whatever, then try it in table. Inhaling cow perhaps. Exhaling cat, and take it up and back. Downward facing dog. We're going to spend a few moments here just getting comfortable in our dog, pedaling perhaps. Maybe you're going to take your feet out to the side and get a little hip movement, side body. Then as you're ready, please find stability in downward dog. So I want my feet no more than 5-6 inches apart at most. And I'm going to ask you to ever so slowly, well, first make sure your rib cage is in, ever so slowly take your right foot and just hover it at first so you can notice any compensation. And then take it on up, straight up and back, keeping hips neutral. I'm also now going to encourage my left heel towards the floor, and ooh, does that take me into my hamstring? Beautiful. Hold and release. We'll switch and take a break any moment. And then as you're ready, join me. Left leg hovering first, then rising. Rooting through the hands, rising through the hips, rooting through that right heel. It doesn't matter if it ever gets to the floor. Hello, hamstring. And release. Lovely. Child's pose. So it'd be a great time to just roll out those wrists, love them up. In the long run, yoga really creates incredible strength all through the hand, wrist, form, and, well, everything. But it can be kind of intense in the moment. We always want to release that. Go ahead and wiggle those hips a little side to side. And come into a nice steady breath. Our slow, steady breath, remember, is ultimately what creates peace in the body and then in the mind. So if our breath is rushed or kind of stressy, we're holding it, that sends a message of not peace to the body. So we want to always check that breath. I'm going to tuck my tailbone and come back up to return to downward facing dog. We're going to be doing a leg flying and kind of a crunch movement that you could easily do here in table instead, okay? You could also even do a standing version, right? If you're just like, I can't be on my wrist today. So as you're ready, using that powerful core, come on up to your downward facing dog. Shoulder heads rotate open away from the ears. Rib cage drawing back and in. Ah, a drishti gaze. Inhaling, send that right leg flying. As I'm exhaling, I'm going to come forward into my plank and bring that right knee kind of rounding into my cat back, into my chest. Inhaling up and back. And on this next one, you can still bring that knee into the chest. And if you'd like, you can bring the right foot out to the left a little. So it's like almost like you were going to come into pigeon. It kind of just gets the core engaged in a different way. Let's do twice more, whichever version you're enjoying. Breathing in. No neck tension. All in the center body. Last one. And dog. Option for dog series, or you could just go right into child's pose or walking your hands back to forward fold. For dog series, please remember on your first one, always come down to knees so that you can have a chance to warm the body, know what's there. Exhaling, chaturanga, elbows bending in, shoulders anchoring down. Settling to cobra. Inhaling, draw that heart forward. Exhaling, downward facing dog. No wings, no shrugs. Inhaling, slowly take that left leg flying. Exhaling, crunching into plank with that knee coming up. I should say extending into plank, but with a crunch, a core crunch. You don't want to crunch into plank. Inhaling, leg back up. Exhaling, knee drawing forward, and maybe bringing that right or that left foot out to the right edge of the mat so that you're getting a little bit of an angle. Good, let's do one more. See if you can really try to bring that leg towards your belly. Draw it, draw it, draw it. And release back to your dog. Coming either into child's pose or dog series. If you are someone who's now craving more flow today, you've always got that option. Just because Thursdays are officially our flow class doesn't mean you can't add more flow to your Monday class where I'm doing more breaking down and slowing things and so on. All right, we're going to come into some knee down lunges. So if you wanted to skip dog with leg flying, then you're just going to come to kneeling like so. Otherwise, right now you're in dog, right leg flying. And we're gonna bring that right foot forward, drop that left knee if it's not already down, and pause and just pulse. Steering right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. If this is bothersome to be on your knee, remember you can come up into essentially a crescent lunge, okay? If you're able to be on the knee, hold there. Make sure that front knee is over the heel, and see if you can add arms a moment. Nice long inhalation. And exhaling. Returning to your dog with legs flying if you'd like. We're gonna bring that right leg forward again, and this time we're gonna drop that left knee, and we're gonna sit back with our hips, flexing the right foot. So ideally, again, I really want my hips steered, left hip bone forward, right hip bone back, the foot forward of the hip, not like out to the side. And then I want to do a tractioning here. So this is a great way to try and balance out some of the disharmonies we get, the arguments in quad and ham. Go ahead, if you would please, and pull with your heel as if you're trying to shorten your yoga mat. Hello, hamstring. If you're not getting a hello, then you're doing something wrong. Check your alignment, check your how much engagement. You can release and retraction a couple times. And then at some point, rotate your foot a little left and right. And that'll bring you into communication, usually with that back leg pretty well. I'm nicely in my core, so I'm not slumping. I'm not asking my neck or shoulders to do it. Lots of core work here. Ah, lovely. And if it just feels inspired, you might just kind of drape into it. And then I like coming out and just doing some nice counter movements, however you'd like to do that. Again, you might be coming from downward facing dog, left leg flying to do the lunge, or just up to your kneeling. Coming forward with that left foot. Again, checking that as you press your hips forward, your foot's far enough forward such that the knee arrives above the heel. We don't want to be with it behind, and we also don't want to be hips right over the back knee. This is a lunge, so we're going forward. Good. Steer those hip bones, left back, right forward, and consider adding arms. Deep breath, hopefully into a stretch in your lower right abdomen. One more. And your choice to either return to dog, left leg flying, or you could also come right out again to table. And then as you're ready, bring that left foot forward again. And this time, settle back through the hips into that hamstring stretch. It's sometimes called a runner's stretch. Breathe again, nice core support, belly to spine, and begin tractioning. So again, I'm pulling back through that left foot like I'm trying to shorten the yoga mat. Breathing, soft gaze, soft tongue, maybe a soft smile. Maybe you're as excited as I am to find the treasure of the tension in the hamstring. And then hold and do a little rotation of the legs so that you're moving that stretch around. Is this side different? Breathing, and if it feels good, go ahead and just do a nice drape briefly. And take your time coming on out. Again, it might be to table or to dog. And we're gonna come into one last round of dog series. If you'd like to join me, you could also just do any spinal pumping, including standing hip pump. Otherwise, right here, inhaling to your plank. Again, nice core support. You should be able to release your limbs. And then as you're ready, exhale, chaturanga. Lift the butt a little bit and let that chest proceed. Maybe you can only get this far. Maybe you can touch your nose to the floor before drawing the heart forward to upward dog, or staying in cobra where you've been before. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Let's slowly walk the hands back, ragdoll, back of the mat. And as you settle in here for a few breaths, do make breath a priority. If you have to extend to get the inhale, go for it. But go ahead and move your weight a little from side to side, once again exploring some of the tensions in the ham, the IT band, which is that outer band from the knee to the hip. And when you are ready, come on up. Nice root and rise. Squeeze those thigh muscles towards the bone. Tune in. We've got a little bit of the seasonal allergies going on with all the beautiful, amazing pollen that's flying through the air. I'm not complaining, but please excuse the occasional sniffling here. All right, we're going to come into train tracks. One of the best ways that I know of to contribute to neutral. So what we're doing when we're doing train tracks, by the way, you'll be facing the front of your mat, so you'll be stepping back. But it's starting with the feet hip width apart, which is maybe 5-6 inches. It's not out here, like out at this part of the hip. It's in alignment with your hip bones here. So if you kind of put your hands like this on your hip bones and you look down, then you might see your fingers in alignment with like your second toe, okay, or something like that. And when we are here, we want to check first that the feet are already straight. So this is not straight. This is straight. And it's the same thing when we step our foot back. A lot of us might be tempted to settle for this back foot being straight. It's not. I need to rotate it, frankly, until it probably feels awkward on most of us. If not on both sides, for sure, usually on one. So that's going to be the point of our focus. So we're just going to keep our hands on our hips to make the balance a little easier. I don't want to be too distracted. And again, nice root and reach. And as you're ready, simply step back with your right foot onto the ball of the foot. Not a long distance, as you can see, maybe a foot, foot and a half. You can always deepen it. And then ever so slowly settle that right heel down into what you think is the train track. So usually you have to kind of actively kick it more out to the side to try and get close to neutral. Now let's see. We'll look underneath, make any adjustment to actually get neutral. Come back up and notice how that feels. You want to be really active in that back leg. We don't want it bent at all. If you've got that but you're not getting a stretch or much sensation, then please scooch your front foot forward a little bit until you do. And very importantly, don't let the weight kind of rock out onto the outside of that front foot. And I'm obviously being dramatic by lifting my inner foot. But if you just look and see, is your ankle pulling to the outside? Are your toes kind of pulling and gripping? And instead, what you should be able to feel is total anchoring through the big toe and the inner foot, such that you could even lift your toes. And so if you actively give up that inner foot, you'll see what happens to your ankle and your whole alignment. Okay, and come slowly on back. If that back leg feels a little rubbery, you probably got some good stretch, good reprogramming. Let's step back with the left foot. We're going to do a couple rounds, so you'll have a chance to kind of really get to know the sensations around this and what's your best depth. So again, check by looking under. Did you get it straight back? Adjust, come upright, power in that back leg, perhaps scooching forward through the front foot, maybe not. We'd like, again, those hip bones to stay steering, that inner foot to stay anchored, and breathe, breathe, notice, and when you are ready, come on back. You can see if that leg feels a little rubbery. Did you notice a difference on one side versus the other of how angled the heel was and how difficult it was to neutral it? That's really useful information. Not everyone's going to be lopsided, but it's also really common. Let's go again. Step back through that right foot. Hip bones stay steering forward. Press the heel towards the floor into the train track. Check your alignment. Come back up. Check that anchoring of the inner foot. It's creating, the way you do it also is you're creating an inner thigh rotation like we do in Crescent Lunge or Warrior One. And then if you'd like, you might add the arms up. This can accentuate the stretch through the front of the hip and into the psoas and so on. Or if you want to do the tricep work that we sometimes do here, you're just bending and unbending the elbow, pushing the earth away. Good. Let's see if you've got 3 more breaths. Rooting, rising, and returning. Whew. Good. Let's find that other side. Left foot steps back. find your train track, check it. Come back up, check your front leg, internal thigh rotation. Powering that back thigh and adding your arms. And you've got time to try both if you want to explore first the upward for that lovely stretch as you breathe deep into your belly. And of course, you've got a few moments, last 3 breaths, if you'd like to do some tricep work. Again, why do we want to work the triceps? Well, it's not just so that we don't get the wobbly arm thing that people don't like. It's specifically importantly because it helps balance out the biceps, which are usually too tight on people. If you lay down on the floor flat and your arms kind of go like this, it's this that's pulling on it. And so the best way to get that to stop is to get this guy, boom, to get stronger. Good, let's come on back. Might be good to do a little ragdoll after that. Take those feet wide and fold. So it's not uncommon to take on a little back tension when we're doing that pose. You know, it's not necessary that everyone will, but I just want you to know that wouldn't be that weird. If you've got your block handy, I'd love you to grab it because we're going to do, I've shown this before. I like to revisit it every once in a while because it's been one of the more important things for me in refinding neutral in my body. That train tracks that we just did, when I first started that about, I guess it's like 2 years ago now, my left and right leg were completely different. And that, it's not the leg itself, it was all the muscularity in here. And I had a much less stable pelvis than I do now and a lot more pain and disharmony. So this has been one of the things that's helped me. Pigeon with tractioning was another, and train tracks. So this is a way to super activate and communicate with the inner thighs, but all the way up to into the groin muscles and so on. So if you are someone who historically walks with your feet a little bit out or out on the outer edge of the foot, like I used to wear down the heels of my shoes when I was wearing professional shoes, the heel always wore out on the outside. This radically changed my body alignment. And like I said, and all the pain and kind of disharmonies with it. So I want you to try this with me. Really, most of us, even if you don't have something that imbalanced, can benefit from waking up these muscles. So get your feet parallel. Place the block between. Make sure it's not right between the knee joints because you don't want it on those connective tissues there. And then when you're ready, I just want you to squeeze the block as hard as you can. Squeeze, 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 and let it go. And continue. And what I notice when I do this is I squeeze, 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 that my pelvis tucks under and comes right under my rib cage, which is a good neutral. And then when I let go, my natural stance is that I tend to go sort of sway back. Squeeze, 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 add the pelvic floor, perineum engagement, Kegling, whatever you want to think of it as. Feel the power right here. It's like you can almost create the effort of a sit-up if you want, like to work the heck out of these muscles. And again, then release. Let's do one more. And if you feel up to it, add the reach of those arms. This basically is mountain pose, although you would never squeeze the legs this hard in mountain. In fact, let's soften just slightly so that the muscles are present, but kind of quietly working all together. Front body, back body, breathing. And you can see if you can get your arms kind of alongside the ears, but don't force it and don't jut forward to get that. And release. So notice if this felt kind of like it ignited something for you. And I would be really curious to see if you did this and train tracks like once a day for a week, if you would notice some differences. It's really exciting. And we just, a lot of the time, if we've got disharmonies, what we're needing to do is to actually wake up the passive or sleepy muscle, as I think of it, the silent partner, and basically get the bossy one to quiet down. So that's what we're looking to do. So I'm hoping now to just take all of that intelligence and communication into a warrior flow. If you just happen to get super hungry for this whole downward facing dog and leg flying thing, you're still digging it, you could always, of course, come in that way. We're going to be coming in from standing crane. So please find the front of the mat, maybe about a 10 to 12 inches back, something like that. And taking your hands in prayer. Sometimes I'll touch the thumbs to the heart space as just a reminder to be kind of heart-centered in my practice, to be in compassion with my body versus pushing or striving or being irritated with it if there are areas that are in challenge and not performing the way that I would like, especially if I'm experiencing pain or restriction. And when you are ready, deep breath, set your drishti gaze straight forward, and inhaling, let's lift the left knee, standing crane. And when I do this, I might bend my knee, kind of an athletic stance. I might also practice powerfully pushing the earth away with that standing leg. Exhaling now, step back to your crescent lunge, or if you prefer warrior one, where that back foot is flat, kind of not 45 degrees, just a little bit turned outward with the toes. You might add arms. Steering left hip bone forward, right hip bone back. We're going to hold a little bit longer here, a chance to come into some intensity and to find a softening around that. The breath, again, being our main guide for creating peace inside of intensity. But also the tongue connection, just making sure if it was sandwiched against the roof of the mouth that you soften it. Just the light connection at the tip of the tongue, soft eyebrows and gaze. Hello, thighs. And as you're ready, transitioning Virabhadrasana 2. Now that foot's turned out 45, or I guess it's 90. Thighs externally rotating. Again, checking your alignment, scooching that foot forward until your knee and heel are aligned. And then reaching out from the heart through those middle fingers, shoulder, head settle. Check your neutrality here. It's really common in warrior for people to get very archy, and instead I'd like you to connect. It's also common for people to get reachy, and instead I'd like you to find that settled neutral of the spine where you're like feeling like a puppet just hanging, or marionette from the ceiling. So while there's this deep rooting and reaching through the legs, through the arms, from tailbone to crown, there should also feel a very kind of peacefulness in your neck, your eyes, your tongue, your breath. And able to respond to some of the intensity that might be showing up in your right thigh muscle, for example. Perhaps you'd like to add platter hands, that right hand being your offering hand. Any gifts of your practice you'd like to offer up. On a long inhale, sweeping up through that right arm, and your choice, staying bent leg or straightening, pushing the earth away, or you can even pulse in and out. I usually turn my head to the floor here to reduce strain in my neck. And one more long inhale, and then we're going to flow forward, either lateral stretch, with that elbow to thigh as a starting point, or going down, this knee bent, or in your triangle leg. And this might be kind of nice after that quad stretch that we were doing on the floor. So you want to make sure, though, that, again, the thighs are externally rotating, which clicks that pelvis right into between the legs. It's not out behind. And I want to make sure that at no point, as I'm sliding my hand down the inside of the leg, at no point am I letting the pelvis go out behind and the torso forward. So I'm sliding between two panes of glass. Another way to help with this is to keep that right glute activated towards the left edge of the mat, and that's kind of what helps rotate the pelvis. Then check for the stacked shoulders, and breathing. And bringing peace to a certain amount of intensity. Power from that back leg through the crown. Check that your head's back in alignment. And if you'd like to add that upper arm reaching for the ceiling, feel free. If that just creates kind of a pull or a stress here, then just bring that hand right back to the waist and keep that shoulder head rotating back. Big inhale, give it room. Exhaling, one more, drawing down. Good, and then please come straight back up. We're gonna actually come into straddle. So even if you were in lateral stretch, come up, rotate the feet. If your ankles need a break or something, just come on in, love them up, or bring them closer in permanently, and then come on into your straddle. So legs can be straight, they can be bent, we can go back and forth, and of course we can go back and forth side to side, bending and straightening one at a time. This is a favorite. I like to do it almost daily. We spend so much of our life with our feet just in a forward path of motion, and that creates a lot of tension and holding in the hips, a lot of imbalance. So now with knees bent, opportunity for yoga mudra before we do our warrior on the other side. If you need a strap or a sock or something, go grab it, or if you prefer this pose upright, do so. Otherwise, intertwining the hands. And you can see that my goal here is to get those arms straight, pushing the fists up and away until I can feel that the triceps are now in equality with the biceps. Breathing. You might choose to kind of pump the arms a little bit. Sometimes that feels good. And you can also even create a twist there if you'd like. And coming slowly on up. Good. If you would like, dog series is always an option. Again, this isn't officially our flow class, but you're welcome to bring your flow energy anytime that you want. And otherwise, I'm going to return to the front of the mat. I'm going to take some time, roll up my ankles, my wrists, right? A lot of intense and good work there. And we'll come into our warrior series on the other side. So again, take time, get your feet neutral, finding that nice root and rise, stable spine. Deep, abiding, peaceful breath. Finding the gap, the pause. And now lifting your left knee into standing crane. And you might pause and see what it's like to straighten the leg and then get into your athletic stance. Step back. Oh, I can come on the wrong side. Ha! Make sure you've lifted your right knee and step back. There we go. And if you want that foot flat in Warrior One, you can. Remember, the toes are shining just a little bit towards that kind of front corner of the mat if you're doing that. And you'll usually find that in Crescent Lunge, your stance can be a lot longer than in Warrior One. It's just what you prefer. Add your arms. We're going to hold here for a couple of breaths. Getting comfortable with some of the sensation through the thigh. Again, making sure that the thighs are internally rotating. And so one way to make that happen is to make sure that your right hip bone is steering forward, left hip bone steering back, so that the headlamps of your hip bones, if you will, are straight forward. And one more long inhalation, slow, deep and wide. And exhaling, transitioning, Virabhadrasana 2. So now that back foot turns 90. Check your front foot and knee alignment again. It's not uncommon for people to, rotate their foot as they're transitioning and not realize. So the more you can kind of visually check your alignment, the better. I sometimes use my hands to remind the muscles of what does it take to externally rotate. Again, it's these left glute muscles, in this case, that are needing to kind of move towards that right edge of the mat. And then we'll reach from the heart space. Shoulder head sliding down. Check that you're not reaching forward. And if you'd like, you could add platter hands. This is considered our receiving hand, the left hand. Any blessings that we would like to receive. The more that we can see our body as this, I don't mean to say the word container to sound like we're just a coffee can. So it's not demeaning it, but a container for all of the energies, all of the thoughts that we have, all the feelings that we have. And so it becomes also our best tool for processing and moving energies through so that they don't become stagnated, they don't make us sick, They don't paralyze us. They don't make us bust out in rage. So it's using our body and our breath to over and over again find harmony, balance, peace. Inhaling, root and reach up. Maybe bent leg, maybe straight. Maybe first one and then the other, pulsing. And on a slow journey to your lateral stretch, elbow to thigh. If you are doing that again, check the hip bones, thighs externally rotating, shoulders stacking. Or you start with the straight leg and do all those same alignment checks. Again, notice if you think your pelvis might have slipped out to the side or your torso a little to the right. Draw it all back towards center. And if it feels appropriate in your body, adding that top arm. And again, if that just feels like a kind of awkward pull and now you can't breathe well, reduce the intensity. Make breath the priority. Couple more here. Big inhale. I love this pose. I often get a little spinal adjustment, a couple little clunks, but only if you're breathing. Good. Come straight up. Beautiful. And then we're going to, one more time, turn into our straddle and fold. Straddle, by the way, is fun because you can do this out in nature, and especially in a body of water. This is one of my favorite things, is to go into straddle and get that wonderful visual that is seeing the world upside down. It's so cool. It's a great reminder that there are a lot of ways to see the same thing. So when you are ready, come on out. You could always do another yoga mudra, of course, too, if that was appealing. So we're going to come into onto our back body, into just a couple of, as I consider them, renovating poses that we usually do at the beginning. We're doing it at the end tonight. And I know you know them. It's bridge and with leg extensions. And so you'll get to feel some of the renovating of that, especially with all the rearranging that we've done. And then I want to offer you actually reclined pigeon. You could always do basic regular one. And then we'll be closing, of course, with Shavasana and meditation. So when you're ready, grab your block. Have it handy if you're going to want to use that. One thing we can use it for, by the way, in addition to the reclined pose, is putting it between the thighs here. If you're discovering that you could benefit from that squeezing intelligence that we had when we were standing, this is another way to get it. Or if you noticed that you were rolling to the outer part of the foot during train tracks or during warriors, that means these interior muscles are not working the way you want. We got to wake them up. So if you'd like, coming into your bridge with the block, and then as you're ready, powering down through the upper arm, get those shoulder heads together or move towards each other. And exhaling, press up. You might come down a little bit and reassert the bridge. You might come all the way out and back up. I'm going to remove the block for now because I want to add leg extensions, and I find it kind of gets awkward. But keep that same inner squeeze to help you now as you slowly extend one leg. And my hope is, as we go back and forth, that you're going to feel quite a bit of evenness or stability and not having the hip drop because of some of the work we've done. I hope so. Again, when we find balance in the muscles and we've been breathing slow, deep, and wide, we are writing programs of evenness, neutrality, peace, balance throughout the whole body. So you can even check, by the way, too, if you're extending your leg, that your leg is not rotating out, foot rotating out. That's a habit I see in people, and sometimes it's just in one leg. Go ahead and come on down. And that gives you a great clue sometimes to what's happening. Again, up in the pelvis, there might be some torque. When you're ready, cross the right ankle onto left thigh and hug the right knee towards your chest, bring the whole deal towards you. And all the way a little to the left. And some days I don't have to go much more than an inch to find treasure. So notice what feels right to you. And sometimes I'll also kind of grab this foot
with the other hand. If I can still hug the right knee, sometimes that just gives me a nice little subtle difference that works well in my body. Deep breath. Each inhale that's slow, deep, and wide, affirming I am well, I am whole, I am at peace. Slowly coming on back and switching. Left knee coming tight, tight into the belly and rotating again a little to your right and taking your hands wherever you need them to be. But I do find consistently that people find grabbing the knee more effective than trying to grab around the right thigh, which can be really awkward. But play with it, of course. But this I've found to be really the best version for the majority of people. Breathing slow, deep, and wide, pulsing, adjusting. And when you are ready, coming on out. If it would feel good, just a brief re-engagement. Again, this posture of bridge really helps galvanize kind of an equal communication all around the pelvis and into the quad hamstring relationship. And then inviting you please to find a relaxed shape. Maybe it is your corpse pose. Perhaps you're wanting to come into child's or go onto your side body in embryo, for example. We will ultimately in our meditation be doing that either laying down or seated. So you're welcome if you're really getting excited about practicing more seated meditation. You might choose to find that shape right away. Otherwise, we'll have a few minutes of our Shavasana and then the meditation. So please notice that you are supported. The floor, your yoga mat are beneath you. And you might affirm that you had a perfect practice. No matter what it was, that it was exactly as it was supposed to be. If you did notice any striving and so on, then notice please too that might be something that follows you into life off of the yoga mat, that it's just reflected here. And this would be a lovely time to express appreciation for the body, for its resiliency, its ability to shift and adjust and to heal. Notice your breath gently rising and settling. No effort of any kind, letting go of ujjayi. Notice if the mind has wandered off and simply return its attention to breath. This beautiful little moment of yogic sleep. If you are deeply comfortable and settled and heavy in your limbs, feel free to stay just as you are as I share our very simple meditation. You're also welcome to come to seated. So in this meditation, you'll be simply breathing in and out as you have been. But we're going to be adding the intention that on the inhale, we are breathing in pain, suffering, anything in particular that we have witnessed is a challenge, perhaps in a particular person that we care for, or out in a particular community. Perhaps it's the
pain and suffering of the environment or something else. So it doesn't matter what it is, and you don't have to name its origin, but to just simply have the intention, breathing in pain, suffering. Maybe there are other words that come to you: fear, anger, grief, loss, loneliness. And then on the exhale, you're breathing out peace, shanti. So inhaling pain and suffering. Exhaling out peace. You are very welcome to adjust these words in any way, add any imagery. But I often picture my body as being a filtration system, even a piece of fabric that can sift or sieve, and letting that energy come in to me so that it is then transmuted as it moves out through the filter into an offering of peace, healing, and so on. So continuing, inhaling suffering, and exhaling shanti. The Sanskrit word for suffering is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A, I believe. So if you want to change the language entirely to Sanskrit, which can be very powerful, kind of make it almost a simple song in your system, feel free to do that. It would be inhaling dukkha, exhaling shanti. Inhaling dukkha, exhaling shanti. Please continue for a few more rounds with your own timing and your own thought forms. You are welcome to continue this as long as you'd like now, but also to repeat it any time and for as long as you like. I do invite you to notice how it feels to you in this moment, if you noticed any particular effects. One of the things that I notice is that for me it creates more of a state of peace or calm in me when I've perhaps been feeling stirred up in concern for others, again, an individual or a community or so on, and feeling perhaps powerless to help or create healing. And I find this meditation is a great place to turn my energy. There's also, of course, the loving kindness meditation, and that recording is also on the YouTube channel, and you could check that out if you don't really remember how that goes. Thank you so much for coming to the mat today, for your time in creating peace and ease in your own systems, and as an offering to anyone else in your life. I'll be closing with the bowls and 3 ohms. If you'd care to join me, please do. Otherwise, just let the vibration resonate around you. Finding a nice long spine, inhaling. shanti, shanti, shanti. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste.